Hi guys, Jasmine here. In this video I'm going to be talking to you about self-care practices that generally isn't spoken about as often. Let's get right into it. If you're new to my channel, go ahead and subscribe. I'm a practicing social worker and I share my experiences here on my channel. So here on my channel, every now and again I do share like what I do for self-care and stuff like that, because I do emphasize the importance of self-care if you're going to be practicing social work. Now there are some aspects of self-care that I feel like are not necessarily talked about as often compared to, you know, taking time out and doing something for yourself. Like, you know, I've spoken about that quite often, but these are a few things that are not necessarily mentioned as often. So yeah, I will start now. I think I've got 9 points, which is a bit of an odd number, but still helpful, I'm sure. Okay, so most of the points that I'm going to mention actually tie into the actual work that we do and the organizations that we work in and how that interrelates with self-care. So my first point is, what are the values of your organization? Does it align with your own? I think if you're going to be working in a place long term, you need to find organizations that have values that are in line with your own, to help minimize the tension that might be occurring within you when you work in a place where, you know, the values are not necessarily in alignment with yours. I feel like if you work in a place where the values are in alignment with yours, it's easy to work because you believe in everything that you're doing and you're not doing it just because the boss says you should do it or just because this is what the organization does. I mean, sometimes it's hard, like it's inevitable. There would be clashes in values and stuff like that. But I think if you seek out an organization that has similar values to you, then you would most likely not come across those clashes that often. So that's point number one. Point number two is, does your organization care about you as a staff member? Care for you in the sense that they're paying you like the average of what most other organizations are paying to their staff. You know, they're doing things like Christmas parties, they're nurturing, you know, the staff and taking care of them and making sure they're all right too, giving you enough leave. All those kind of things are good indicators of whether the organization cares about the work that you do and about you as a person, so as to like enhance my ability to continue to remain in this field for as long as I want. My next one is, what's your caseload like? Is your organization sensitive to the fact that, you know, you need to have a certain number of people on your caseload and you can't have any more than a certain number because that can impact on your ability to work with them and it increases your burnout rate and stuff like that? What does that look like? That's something that is really important to take into consideration as well, because they shouldn't be overworking you. You should have a manageable number of people on your caseload and nothing that's overbearing or overwhelming. So is that something that your organization is mindful of? I think that's definitely part of self-care. Do you get supervision? That's also really important. Like, you need that space to be able to vent and to be able to develop your work and to be able to ask questions and stuff like that. If you do, how often do you get it? I think once a fortnight is the standard. If you're getting any less than that, that's probably something that you need to bring up, or it's up to you to start considering whether this organization is really providing the best that they can for you as well. This one is, are your training needs supported? So obviously once you graduate doesn't mean you know everything. There's tons of training that you can do to continue to improve your practice, and that's part of your self-care, because I think if you don't improve, you just get bored of doing repetitive things over and over again. So how supportive is your organization on that? Are they willing to give you leave to go and do training? Are they willing to pay for you to attend certain trainings? What does that look like? That's something that I would consider as well. Are your other work needs supported? So I think sometimes like needs might come up when we work in different roles, and sometimes it's the organization's responsibility to ensure that their staff are well catered for in those aspects. An example is I started getting pretty bad shoulder pain in my right shoulder, and that's just from moving the mouse and, you know, being on the computer for ages and stuff like that. So I had to request for a standing desk, which I ended up getting, and that has been really helpful. Is that something that, you know, your work would consider, like if you needed something to enhance, you know, your well-being in the workplace? And what are your co-workers like? I think co-workers can make or break you in a job. I think if you work in a very unhealthy environment where there's always quarreling and gossiping and just drama, it can be overbearing and it can just be exhausting to go to work. So it's really important for you to be mindful of that. What does that look like? Is it helpful for you? Is it not? Do you need to change your work environment? Do you need to get a new job? What does that look like? That's something to consider as well. And it makes a massive difference when you have supportive co-workers. My next point is your team leader, supervisor, manager, whoever sort of oversees the work that you do, are they supportive of you? I think this is really important. And when I say supportive of you, I just mean in terms of like issues that you might have outside of work. Sometimes you might need to take leave out of the blue because maybe someone's passed away, maybe your kid is sick, maybe you just have to go and do something. Are they supportive of those kind of things, even though there might not be set guidelines or policies around it? Is that something that they're willing to support you with? That's definitely something to consider, because life happens and sometimes you need to get out of work without much notice and stuff like that. So I think it's really important to find a place that's respectful of that and supportive of that. And then my final point is, what is the culture at your workplace? What does that look like? Do they sort of encourage relationships with co-workers? Do they encourage self-care? Do they encourage training? Do they encourage like social activities between staff members? What does that look like? I think that's something that's obviously like you won't know until you actually start working in a certain place, but it's something to be mindful of and to pay attention to and find out if it's beneficial for you or if it's not. So these self-care tips are all like aspects of self-care that you need to be mindful of in the workplace in particular. So yeah, I hope it's helpful. I hope it's brought your attention to something that maybe you could be working on or something that you need to pay more attention to. That's pretty much it, guys. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and subscribe. Give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful, and I shall see you in my next video. Bye.